So the plan was to come up here and talk about Patrick Mahomes and how he didn't have a concussion, and we'll talk about all those things anyway, and how he was going to play. But they've already come out and said he's playing. He already told the media that he was playing on Sunday. Already knew that. I wanted to be the one to tell you guys that. But you know what? Scrap that. Change the title of the video and everything in today's show because Daniel Jeremiah, my guy DJ, just dropped his first mock draft of the spring. And trust me, this is 1.0. There's going to be about 15 of these things before we hit late April. Anyway, thought it was pretty interesting what his mock draft 1.0 looked like. And I'm just going to tell you right now, Justin Fields is for suckers. Who else could it be? Me, your man, Louie T. Welcome to the 132nd installment of the Louie T Network podcast. I, of course, am your set man, Louie T. Thank you for joining me on today's program. Beautiful Friday afternoon. And we're going to talk about the championship Sunday coming up. Two really outstanding contests. Are we going to get what we want? If you're a Bills fan, you don't want the outcome that most of us want, which is Mahomes versus Rodgers. We'll see what happens. We'll talk about how we got there because we really never touched on that here on this podcast. I told you guys yesterday and I teased that I had a story, a conversation that I had with Boss, and I said I was going to share that with you guys. And some of you are going to be like, duh, Louie T, how did you not know this? Well, I didn't know, and that's why I'm going to share it with you guys. So we'll talk about that a little bit later on. And, of course, we're going to get to my money picks of the week. But before we do any of that and start looking towards Sunday, I do want to say this first before we jump into our Gem Droppin Session today. We talked about this briefly yesterday. I combed over this, but I don't want to spend a lot of time on it today. But the Eagles did hire a brand new head coach, Nick Sirianni, the ex-quarterbacks coach of the Indianapolis Colts. What does this mean? I think this is their way of saying, hey, we're hiring you to fix Carson Wentz. That's what this feels like. Feels like when Washington hired Jay Gruden to be their head coach some, 5, 6, 7 years ago. And Jay said, yep, I can fix him. I can fix old Bob. I sure can. And then like 3 practices in, he was like, nope, can't fix him. I can't do it. And he moved on from Bob Griffin and ultimately ended up going with Kirk Cousins. This kind of feels like that. Not saying that that's what's going to happen. They probably made it very clear to Nick Sirianni, hey, you really need to make Carson Wentz work. We're giving you this job with you being a quarterbacks guy and you having a relationship with Frank Reich, who was probably the guy that got the most out of Carson Wentz. We think you have similar principles and are going to be able to get similar results. Hence, we're bringing you here to Philadelphia. If you can't get that done, and if he wins, I guess that will kind of cancel everything else out, even if it's not with Wentz. But if you can't fix Wentz, then we have a problem. We'll see how it goes. We'll talk about that a little bit later on down the line. Different topic for a different episode. Let's get to the Gem Droppin Session today, shall we? I think we shall. Let me drop this gem on your melon. Open your mind, let your conscience be free. You're now rolling with your man, Louie T-double-E. Let me open you up. Thinking a little bit. So, Daniel Jeremiah, my guy from the NFL Network, dropped his mock draft 1.0 today. And I thought it was very interesting. Now, let me go ahead and give out this disclaimer. This mock draft is going to change 87 more times before April the 24th or whatever the draft date is. And so don't overreact to this. These are his initial thoughts as to how things are going to go. But what this is a very a very interesting look at how he feels right now as we sit here on January 22nd. Now, he's done immense work on a lot of these guys, and he'll probably watch more film on some of these guys, hence the movement that you'll see, and he'll talk to some guys that are close with some of these organizations, and he'll start to move some things around. But this is how he feels about the players. This mock draft is a look at how he feels about certain players. I don't think he's talked to enough people to know, well, the Dolphins are leaning Jamar Chase over, say, Jalen Waddle or Devontae Smith. I don't think he's talked to enough people. That will come at the Senior Bowl. That will come as the combine nears and then passes. That's when he'll have that kind of intel and be able to make some of these changes that we'll see in mock draft 2.0 and 3.0 and 2.5 and 4.5 and all of those things that we'll get prior to the draft. What he's telling you right now is how he feels about these players. And that's why he's slotting them where he's slotting them. So I find this very interesting because I've been telling you about some of these players. I'm not going to get into specifics or particulars because I've got a lot of work to do myself. However, I can tell you about some of the mainstays, some of the big names. Those are the guys that I've watched a million times, and I kind of know what I feel when I watch them, but I'm going to watch the film anyway. So I want to go through the top 10. I don't need to go through the entire first round mock. You want to do that, you have every opportunity to check that out and do it yourself. I'm just going to go through his top 10. I find it very interesting. Okay? So, number 1, obviously Jacksonville Jaguars picking first. They're not going to trade this pick, right? They just hired Urban Meyer. They just promoted Trent Baalke from assistant general manager and the interim general manager to permanent general manager. So it's a brand new staff. It's a new organization essentially in Jacksonville. And they're going to start this thing anew with Trevor Lawrence. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. I'm so glad that they were able, in the national championship, Alabama was able to put that whole discussion to rest. Oh my God, is Justin Fields going to compete for the number 1 overall pick? Hell no, he's not. Okay? And so Alabama quieted that very quickly. It's Trevor Lawrence. It's always been Trevor Lawrence. It's going to be Trevor Lawrence. Just like last year. Everyone tried to make something of Joe Burrow. Does he want to go to Cincinnati? Could they take Chase Young number 1? No. It's Joe Burrow. It was always Joe Burrow. It was always going to be Joe Burrow. Same thing here. And obviously, when we get close to the draft, you'll hear people try to make it seem, could it be Zach Wilson? No, it's not. It's going to be Trevor Lawrence. Trust me. Number 2, Jets. Second pick overall. This is where things get interesting. Zach Wilson, BYU quarterback, goes to the Jets at number 2. And I'm just going to tell you this. It's funny with Washington fans, they want, and that's why I told you, don't talk me to death about Zach Wilson, okay? Because this guy won't be around when we pick. Now, a lot of people thought we would be picking that too. Hey, a lot of Washington fans thought at the time when they were bringing this to me, hey, did you see Zach Wilson? Man, this guy looks really good. And that was when they thought we were going to end up with the 6th or the 5th or the 3rd. A lot of Washington fans thought we were going to end up with the top 5 pick, and I kept telling them, we're not that bad. Stop. We're not going to be in a position to draft this kid. And he's one of those guys that's ascended this year, because when the season started, Zach Wilson wasn't on anybody's radar. I mean, maybe the draft beatniks, maybe the guys that have been following Zach Wilson's career and at BYU, and maybe they knew that this meteoric rise was coming. But no one was talking about Zach Wilson. You know, the buzz was surrounding Trey Lance and Justin Fields and Trevor Lawrence heading into the 2020 college football season. No one was talking about Zach Wilson. So that's why Washington fans were so excited. Maybe we can sneak this guy. You're not sneaking anything at the quarterback position, okay? This isn't some wide receiver playing at Southwest Mississippi State that you just hope nobody else knows about. He's playing on a big enough stage, and he's a quarterback. They go far and wide. They search far and wide to find these guys. You can't hide. Ready or not, here they come. You can't hide. You can't hide from the scouts. If you're a good quarterback, they will find you. So what I find interesting, though, is that just 3 weeks ago, after Justin Fields' 6 touchdown performance against Clemson, oh my God, here comes Justin Fields. Could he be number 1? And all the, Photoshop pictures of him in a Jaguars uniform. And here we go. Controversy at 1. If you're the Jaguars, do you have a decision to make? Well, Daniel Jeremiah doesn't even think there's a decision to be made at number 2. He's not even picking him at 2. Now, here's one thing I don't agree with, that Trey Lance drops to number... You know what? I'll just wait. We'll continue to go down the list. So Zach Wilson, BYU quarterback's number 2. Okay? 3rd overall, the Miami Dolphins. You say, what, Miami? What is Miami doing here? This pick should belong to the Houston Texans. But in the Laramie Tunsil deal, good old Bill O'Brien decided to trade away every first-round pick he had in the stash for the next 15 years. And so here the Dolphins are. And the Texans, to his defense, he didn't think the Texans would be this bad. When you make these types of deals, these types of trades, you don't anticipate your team being garbage. No team is going to give away a top 5 pick. If they could see the future and know that they would have a top 5 pick, they wouldn't do the deal. I remember when Washington did the Bob Griffin trade. They didn't think they would be drafting in the top 5. Hell, the number 2 overall pick the next year. They didn't think they would be drafting that high. But they were. Just like when the Bears traded for Khalil Mack. Now, obviously, it's not apples to apples in terms of, 3rd overall and 14, but the Bears didn't think they were going to be. They won the division the year before they got Khalil Mack, or might have been they won the division the year they got him. But they thought they were going to be good. They thought they were one big piece away defensively from turning things around and winning big. So, to their surprise, the following year after that, when they have a down year and the Raiders are then picking at 14, they were shocked. 14 isn't 3, 14 isn't 2, but when you make these trades, you don't anticipate being garbage the next year or the year after that. The Texans had won the AFC South what felt like 3 or 4 years, 3 or 4 times in 5 years. Like, this is what they did. They won the division, so they didn't expect to be, a 4-12. I think they were 4-12 team. Nonetheless, the Dolphins say thank you, and they benefit. And they could take a tackle here, and Daniel Jeremiah acknowledges they could take a tackle here. They could go offensive line here, but I don't think that's what they're going to do. Ultimately, they need weapons. They drafted a bunch of offensive linemen last year. We'll see how those guys fare. But you can't go into next season hoping and praying that the Williams kid, Preston Williams, stays healthy and balls as a number 2. You got Devontae Parker. He's a quality, low-end number 1 in this league. Probably more slated to be a number 2. How about you get a bona fide stud number 1 and get Devontae Parker to be what he probably is made to be in this league, and that's a number 2 wide receiver. And then whatever you get out of Preston Williams or whomever else is on the roster at receiver, added benefit. We love what they're getting out of their tight end position. All right, so to me, Jamar Chase, LSU wide receiver, makes a ton of sense. And I just wanted to make sure that you understood all this hoopla about Devontae Smith, and I get it. He's a hell of a football player, Heisman Trophy winner. He's the last thing you saw. And I talked about sensationalizing him and making him out to be the runaway favorite in this draft to be selected first at the receiver position. I said, hey, be careful with that. And he may ultimately be the first guy taken. But just because you haven't seen Jamar Chase in a calendar year doesn't mean you forget what this man did last year. And, I remember tweeting this out when I asked everyone, and I put out a poll about Devontae Smith versus Jamar Chase, and which one were you taking first if you had an opportunity to draft a wide receiver. And I think As a matter of fact, I got my poll right here. I'm going to look it up and see what the results were. And because I think I'm going to do another poll closer to the draft and see if it holds in terms of the results. And so Devontae Smith, 58%, 42% for Ja'Marr Chase. Now that was the night of the national championship game, and he was in the process of ripping the Ohio State secondary a new asshole. I mean, absolutely tearing them to shreds in the first half of that game. So while you could say, yeah, Devontae Smith's pretty damn good, Ja'Marr Chase is pretty damn good in his own right. And I remember just a year before in the national championship game, he just let everyone know and announced himself to the entire national world and stage of just who he was. Didn't play for a whole year, and I think everyone kind of said, out of sight, out of mind. Well, Daniel Jeremiah is just reminding you guys, he's the physical specimen. He's the physical freak. He's the guy that looks more like a can't-miss wide receiver prospect in this draft, more so than Devontae Smith. Not saying, I'm just saying. Dolphins take him at number 3 in DJ's 1.0 mock draft. This is another interesting tidbit for me here. 4th overall, the Atlanta Falcons, and I talked about this. What do you do if you're Atlanta? Do you take a young guy at the quarterback position? Do you start over? You got a brand new GM in Terry Fontenot. You got a new head coach in Arthur Smith. He'd love to have an athletic quarterback to play around with. Have a guy like Ryan Tannehill to run his system. Have a nice running back. You could take a back here if you want. We all know that Todd Gurley's on his last legs. He's an all true man, yeah, baby. But he's running out of juice. So do you take a back here? Hell no, you don't take a back at 4. There's some good backs in this draft, don't get me wrong, but you don't take a back at 4. Could you go defense here? Sure, you can go defense. Do you go offensive tackle here? Nah, you've invested enough first round picks in offensive linemen. I think that's enough. Could you go corner? Why not? Sure. But let's be honest with each other. They're going quarterback here. The Falcons don't plan on picking this high again for a long, long time. And honestly, I still don't know how the hell they ended up here. It's amazing. But now that you're here, you got to make the most of it. And so, even if you don't trade Matt Ryan, and I don't think they are going to trade him, this is the perfect spot to take a young quarterback and allow him to sit and learn. And all signs point to Justin Fields going here. He's a Georgia kid. It makes a ton of sense. He initially went to Georgia. If you remember that first year, he was in Georgia. He was at Georgia behind Jake Fromm, but didn't want to wait around for Jake Fromm to leave. So he left, took off for Ohio State, and ended up playing 2 seasons there. This makes a ton of sense. Take the hometown kid, right? Wrong. Daniel Jeremiah has the Falcons taking Trey Lance, North Dakota State University quarterback. That should tell you all you need to know about how he feels about Justin Fields. Now, he tells you in his quick little synopsis of the pick that this is a coin flip for him. You could have gone either way. But he says, I'm going to go with the quarterback with the better decision making. I'm just going to move on. Falcons take Trey Lance, quarterback, at number 4. So we go from having the discussion of could Justin Fields sneak into number 1 to now he's not even the 3rd quarterback. He's not the 2nd. He's not even the 3rd quarterback taken in this draft. So we move on to the Cincinnati Bengals at number 5. Look, they could easily go with a wide receiver here. You know, they don't have a true number 1 on their football team. But they just drafted a 2nd round wide receiver last year. They could easily go with a pass rusher here. They don't have anybody elite on that defensive line. They could go with any amount of different positions. I mean, they could use some of everything. They could use a tight end. They probably need a tight end really, really bad. They could go Kyle Pitts here. Why not? But if you're going to draft Joe Burrow and you want to make him your franchise guy, and you want to keep him upright and have him maximize his talents, you got to protect him. That's rule number one. They didn't protect him last year. You got to draft a tackle here. So they're going to go with Rashawn Slater out of Northwestern. He's your first tackle off the board. Much to the chagrin of many people and to the surprise of many who thought Penei Sewell would have been the first pick at tackle off the board, Rashawn Slater is the first pick at tackle off the board. 5 to the Bengals. Okay? Makes a ton of sense to me. Don't know which tackle they're going to ultimately go with, but they're going to go offensive line and they're going to go tackle. I feel confident in saying that. Then you get to number 6, the Philadelphia Eagles. This is an interesting pick here. They could go in a number of different directions. They could use a quarterback. I mean, obviously, they're not going to do it because they're sticking with Carson Wentz. That's the reason they got rid of their head coach or ex-head coach, Doug Peterson, because he didn't want to roll with Carson Wentz anymore. They want to salvage Wentz. So they're not going to draft. We already know Carson Wentz's psyche is as fragile as it gets. So they got to do everything to coddle him and make him feel special and not make him feel like they're trying to replace him. So they got to cater to his needs. So you'd think the first thing they do is get him a receiver here and something elite. I mean, let's be honest with ourselves. For the last 2 years, Carson Wentz has been throwing to so-and-sos that no one knows, but there it goes. But they just spent a first-round pick on a receiver last year. You really want to double up on the wide receiver position 2 years in a row, first round? Not exactly. And you spent like 8 picks on receivers last year in aggregate. Hightower, the kid from Southern Miss. Don't think you want to do that again. So, Daniel Jeremiah has them going with cornerback Patrick Surtain, the second out of Alabama, the first cornerback off the board. Personally, I think this is a little high for him. Not like he doesn't deserve to be a top 10 pick or even the 6th pick. I just don't think he's going to go this high. But we'll see. They finished up the season with Jaquette at cornerback. Look, man, I can't make this stuff up. At some point, you're like, all right, we got to fix this. Maybe they do fix it at number 6. We'll see. Number 7, Detroit Lions. Just hired a brand new GM. Just hired a brand new head coach. And the thought process is, the prevailing thought out there is Matthew Stafford's for sale. No, he's not. He's not going anywhere. So, if Stafford isn't going anywhere, guess who is going somewhere? All of his receivers, who are all free agents this year. So, conventional wisdom says all 3 of your top targets at the receiver position are free agents. You're not bringing all 3 of them back. Now, if I'm the Lions, I'm bringing Kenny Golladay back. Even though he's been injury prone throughout his career, when he's healthy, he's a stud. So, think Kenny Galladay's back. Don't think Marvin Jones is back. Don't think that Danny Amendola's back. So, you're going to need to do something at wide receiver. And I got just the guy for you. Heisman Trophy winner. Guy that shattered all the records at Alabama. A guy that we thought could easily have gone number 3 overall to the Miami Dolphins. Devontae Smith, of course, is who I'm talking about. That's who Daniel Jeremiah has the Detroit Lions taking at 8. If you're going to keep Matthew Stafford, you have to give him some targets to get the football to. And so that makes a ton of sense. And I think after that pick, you spend the bulk of your draft really bolstering that defense if you're Detroit. But got to get him another weapon, another reliable target to throw to. Wouldn't be shocked if they also did a little bit of damage in free agency on the low end of the totem pole. But we'll see what happens. 8th overall, Carolina Panthers. Matt Rule, head coach. I told you he's going to turn this thing around. only a matter of time. And they were very competitive, were the Carolina Panthers in 2020. Very competitive. Could have easily won 8-9 games this season. Instead, they won 5. Nonetheless, here they are at number 8. And they signed Teddy Bridgewater to a 3-year contract. And Teddy was solid this season. But Teddy's not the answer. They know it. You know it. I know it. And everybody else knows it. Even Teddy knows it. So what do they do here at 8? Well, they're like, hey, we would have preferred Trey Lance. Would have loved to have gotten Zach Wilson. Knew we weren't getting Trevor Lawrence, but I guess we'll settle for Justin Fields. He's the best of the rest. And so, not first, not second, not even third, but fourth among the quarterbacks taken in this draft is Justin Fields. Here at 8 to the Carolina Panthers. Now, let me say this. Doesn't matter where you're taken. All that matters is what you do once you're selected. But I can't help but look at Justin Fields, and I'm not going to do the whole Ohio State quarterback thing. I'm past that. I already told you, don't scout the helmet, scout the player. I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to tell you what I've seen from this guy. I've seen a guy that under pressure doesn't make smart and sound decisions. I've seen a guy that will throw the football up for grabs, that will make mistakes, that isn't good under pressure. I saw a guy this season that improved from an accuracy standpoint, but still I don't see a guy that reads the field all that well. So I've got issues, but we'll see. He's talented. He's athletic. He's got a big arm. He checks all the boxes. He passes every eye test. I'm just not a massive Justin Fields fan. And I'm not saying that Daniel Jeremiah isn't because of this list, but he could have made him the second quarterback off the board. He could have made him the third quarterback off the board. He made him the fourth quarterback off the board. And I think that says where he ranks Justin Fields in the pantheon of these quarterbacks coming out in this draft class. And I don't think he's wrong. I'm not saying, just saying. 9th overall, the Denver Broncos take. I'm going to just say this. Let this be the last thing that I say. In every NFL draft, okay, every NFL draft has some crap in it. Don't you step in it. All right. I'm going to leave it at that. Got to watch where you step. You smell that? Somebody's going to step in it. I'm not saying it's Justin Fields. I'm just saying. Watch out. 9th overall, Broncos decide to go cornerback, and this makes a ton of sense. They lost a lot of cornerbacks last year via injury and free agency. They thought they were going to be able to stay afloat by swapping out longtime veteran Chris Harris Jr. for A.J. Boye. It didn't work out. Boye got injured. They had issues in the secondary. They drafted a young kid. He had to play a lot more than they wanted him to out of Iowa last year. They need help at cornerback. And if Vic Fangio is going to play the kind of defense he wants to play, he's going to need more consistent play out of his corners. So Caleb Farley out of Virginia Tech makes a ton of sense. I honestly think this is where Patrick Surtain is going to ultimately go. I just can't envision a top 10 that has as many corners in it as offensive tackles. That's generally not how this process goes. It's usually quarterbacks, tackles, and then everybody else, you fill out the top 10 however you like. So if there are 4 quarterbacks, which this mock draft has 4 quarterbacks going in the top 10, which I think is very plausible and probably more likely than not, the way it's going to unfold is 4 quarterbacks are going to go in the top 10. Then I think it's going to be 3 tackles, more likely than not. I could easily see the Eagles saying, all right, enough of the shenanigans. We'll take a tackle. And they drafted a young kid 2 years ago that they're dying to see stay healthy and play. So it would make a ton of sense if they didn't even blink and look at the tackle position. But with all the injuries that they had last year, I wouldn't be shocked if they said, we got to do something on this offensive line. Can't pass up this kind of talent. I think they're going to go with the young fella though, and give him another opportunity to stay healthy and be their left tackle in the future. Anyway, I digress. Let's wrap up the top 10 with the Dallas Cowboys, who select offensive tackle Penei Sewell out of Oregon. We know all the issues with the Cowboys up front last year. Tyron Smith's body has been breaking down on him for the last 3 years, and they just finally acknowledged it after a season in which the entire offensive line broke down on them. They're now finally going to acknowledge that they've got an issue on the offensive line, and they're going to address it here. Cowboys have never been shy about addressing their offensive line. That's why it was one of the best in the league for a stretch there, because they spent the resources on the offensive line in the first round. Guards and centers and tackles. So they don't have a problem spending a high-level draft pick on an offensive lineman. They've done it numerous times, and they're going to do it again here at 10. Penei Sewell makes a ton of sense to me. It wouldn't shock me if he's already gone by 10, but they still take an offensive lineman. I just think when it's all said and done, 4 quarterbacks, 3 offensive tackles, and then you fill in the rest of the blanks with whomever you like. Whether it be wide receivers, whether it be a wide receiver and a tight end, whether it be a wide receiver and 2 corners, whatever the case may be. This is a really intriguing top 10 by DJ. I don't think it's going to play out this way, but it's a good start. His first mock draft, I will say, I think he nailed the first 4 picks. I think they're going to ultimately play out exactly the way he drew it up. Lawrence 1 to the Jags, Wilson to the Jets at 2, Jamar Chase to the Dolphins at 3, and Trey Lance to the Falcons at 4. I think that's how it's ultimately going to shake out. You could substitute Fields for Lance at 4. That wouldn't shock me. But you're going to see it in some way, shape, or form unfold like that in the top 4. I feel pretty damn confident about it as we sit here on January 22nd. Now, what happens 5 through 10? I couldn't tell you. We got a ton of time to talk about that. But for any Washington fans out there that are curious as to what DJ had us doing at 19, we're not doing this, but he's got us taking wide receiver Kadarius Toney out of Florida. Just think of Percival Harvin. One of those athletes at Florida that's not truly a real wide receiver, but he's a dynamic athlete, a guy that with the football in his hands makes people miss, can get from point A to point B really fast. He's a playmaker is what he is. Let's call a spade a spade. He's a playmaker. He's not a wide receiver. He's a playmaker. Jet sweeps, put him in the backfield, get it to him quickly. We're not drafting him. We'd go linebacker. We'd go Xavier Collins before we went Kadarius Toney, but that's another discussion for another day. That's DJ's top 10. Really fascinating top 10. I'm just going to tell you right now, this is going to be my narrative. And I haven't watched all the film, and I may come back and change my mind. I don't think it's going to happen. This is going to be one of my narratives the entire draft process. And if I'm wrong, I will admit, because I always tell you, I'm going to be the first to admit when I'm right, because I love being right. But when I'm wrong, I'm also going to be a man about it and be the first to admit that I was wrong. And I'll offer up a 00 if I'm wrong. But my narrative, one of my big narratives in the 2021 NFL Draft is that Justin Fields is for suckers. He's not what you think he is. He looks the part. He's big. He's got an arm. He's athletic. There are a lot of flaws there. Not character-wise. Seems like he's got a good head on his shoulders. Tough kid. Saw him take a beating and keep on ticking. I just don't think he is the guy that's going to be a star in this league. I don't see it. But could be wrong. Let's get to our next segment. And that's our divisional round wrap up. I just want to quickly catch us up to speed on how we got to Championship Sunday And I'm going to give you one big takeaway from each game. We're going to start on the NFC side of the bracket because that's the first game on Sunday afternoon, 3:05 p.m. Packers and Bucks. But how do we get to Packers Bucks? How did the 1 seed and the 5th seed in the NFC advance to lock horns in a big showdown between Brady and Rodgers? How do we get there? Let's start with the Packers, who took on the Los Angeles Rams in the divisional round. Packers get the win 32-18. Score doesn't really do the game justice. This is a lot closer than this. Late touchdown by Allen Lazard really bust this thing wide open. To me, biggest takeaway here, time of possession. The Packers won that thing 36-24. They do that against Tampa Bay, they're going to win the football game again. Rodgers was clean in that game. He didn't get sacked. That was the thing we kept saying, oh my God, this vaunted Rams defensive front with Aaron Donald. We knew he was coming into the game banged up with some fractured ribs and things of that nature, but he still was going to gut it out and play. He wasn't himself. We could see that, but they had other guys that could get pressure on the quarterback. Leonard Floyd, aka Gumby, up and down that line, Michael Brockers, all those guys are really talented. They didn't sniff Rodgers. And, oh, by the way, 484 yards of total offense for the Packers in that football game. If they're able to do those same things against Tampa Bay, they'll win that game, and they'll win it comfortably. They dominated this game on offense, and their defense chipped in with some timely stops. And they were able to win the game 32-18. And we're going to talk more about their keys to victory, if they're going to get the job done, and if they're not, how they're going to lose that football game and allow the Tampa Bay Buccaneers to be the first team in NFL history to play at home in their home stadium in the Super Bowl. Bucks 30, Saints 20 is how the Buccaneers advance to the championship round. Honestly, this was all about the Buccaneers defense. I thought the Bucks offense was pretty damn stagnant for much of the afternoon. Really wasn't impressed with Brady. Didn't think he was all that sharp. I thought they did have some effectiveness on the ground. That helped a lot. And we've noticed this already. Brady was outstanding in Wild Card Weekend versus Washington. But it started with the run game against Washington. And to me, that's the key for the Buccaneers, is they got to be able to establish the run. They did against the Saints. But more importantly, their defense was the story of that game, forcing 4 turnovers of the Saints, 3 interceptions of Drew Brees, a big forced fumble of Jared Cook by Antoine Winfield Jr. When the game felt like it was slipping away from the Buccaneers, they were down 20-13. The Saints were on the move again, and Winfield forces the fumble. They scoop it. They ultimately score on offense, and they never looked back. Scored, I believe it was the final 17 points of that game after being down 20-13 and won 30-20. That was a dominant defensive performance in the second half with the turnovers. If they can do that again, which is what they did to Aaron Rodgers the first time around with the 38-10 beatdown, if they can do that again, dominate the game defensively, force turnovers, the Buccaneers will be heading home to Tampa. You go to the AFC side of the bracket. Saturday night, we got Bills, Ravens. Bills advance to championship weekend, or Sunday, where they'll be taking on the Kansas City Chiefs. So it's 1 seed versus 2 seed. Chalk, if you will, in the AFC. And how the 2-seeded Bills were able to advance 17-3 over the Baltimore Ravens. Pretty simple. Defense and the wind. I thought the wind was just extraordinary. I mean, when does Justin Tucker, aka Just Incredible, miss 2 field goals in a game? Now, if you go back a week, he had missed against Tennessee, which you're like, whoa. But 2 field goals in one game? It's a totally different game if he knocks those field goals through. Even with the pick 6, instead of it being a 17-3 game, it's a 17-9 game. It changes everything. Maybe even changes the way the Bills approached the remainder of that game. Maybe they're not as conservative. Maybe they take more risks. Maybe they're a little bit more aggressive if it's a 1-score game. I don't know. but their defense was outstanding in this game, specifically the rush defense. And even though the Ravens had a respectable total at the end of the game and averaged right around 5 yards a carry, it didn't do them justice. Defensively, they stymied the run game after a slow start, and they got after Lamar Jackson. They made him uncomfortable. They didn't allow any real big plays, and that was an impressive defensive performance, one that I didn't think they were capable of, and that's how they pulled off that victory 17-3 and moved on to the championship Sunday. Chiefs-Browns, 22-17. Chiefs advanced over Cleveland in what was one hell of a football game to start off Sunday's action in Divisional Round weekend. And I can just tell you this, my biggest takeaway was Henny, Mahomes, and Butker. And so we'll start with Chad Henne. Blame it on the Henny. We almost did blame this loss on Chad Henne after his 2nd and 10 Hail Mary heroics, where he decides, with the Chiefs already being in field goal range, after he throws an absolute dime to Travis Kelce over the middle of the field on a beautiful catch and run that puts him in field goal range, he decides to go and do the unthinkable. Alicia Keys status. Just tosses it up. Hail Mary style in the end zone. Throws up a punt that's picked off in the end zone. You're like, what the hell are you doing, man? That's Chad Henne for you. But, as we all know, Chad Henne giveth, Chad Henne taketh away. He tried to give the Cleveland Browns the game, but ultimately he took it away from them with a 3rd and 14 scramble for 13 and a half and a gutsy call by Andy Reid on 4th down to throw it before the 2-minute warning to Tyreek Hill for the first down. Henne was outstanding on those 2 plays to seal the deal. But why was he even in the game in the first place? Let me tell you the story right now. All right. Matter of fact, I'll save it for when we get to my money picks of the week. Patrick Mahomes. No, I'm going to tell it right now because it makes sense to tell it now. Why wait? So, I was talking to Boss. And for those of you who aren't aware, Boss is my dad. I was talking to Boss on the phone, and we talk about these games before they happen, after they happen, all of that good jazz. So, I was talking to Boss, and I was like, yo, I didn't really see what happened to Mahomes. Like, I'm looking for the smoking gun. Like, with Lamar's concussion, you clearly see the head bounce off the turf like a basketball. You're like, yeah, okay. Know what happened there. With Bashaud Breeland's concussion, no one's talking about that. You saw him. You saw the head hit the ground. He said, okay, yeah, I saw that. Yeah, definitely see what happened there. With Patrick's, though, his knees hit the ground first. There wasn't any helmet-to-helmet contact. It was shoulder to helmet, and his shoulder wasn't like a forceful blow to Mahomes' head. You're like, I just don't see it. What happened? And Boss broke it down for me. He says, oh, you didn't see what happened? I saw it soon as it happened. He choked him out. And, it was funny because everybody was like, yo, Patrick got put to sleep. And I wasn't actually thinking about a true sleeper hold. And once my dad said that, once Boss said that to me, it dawned on me. When do we ever have a guy in the league, and the hit was delivered, I believe, by Mack Wilson. When do we ever have a guy in the league that serves up a concussion, tweet to the guy that he concussed, hey man, my bad, I didn't mean for that to happen? It's football. Shit happens. No apologies necessary. Nobody wants to hurt anybody. No one's intent is to hurt anyone. But he felt the need to offer up an apology because he literally choked Patrick Mahomes out. And so Boss is like, if you watch the play closely, and I went back and watched it, he's like, he wraps his hand around his neck. And as Patrick is continuing to struggle for the first down, he grips his arm around his neck and yanks him back, and he cuts off the circulation to his brain. For about a 2-second stretch there was no oxygen going to Patrick's brain. And I said, interesting. And then I thought about it. You used to play the game in high school, got your neck, boop, chop you in your neck. You ever played that? Somebody come up, got your neck, boop, chop you in your Adam's apple, and you can't swallow for 5 to 7 seconds. And it's a terrible feeling. Imagine somebody choking you and you can't breathe and you're trying forcefully, because Mahomes is running, mind you. It's not like he's just sitting down, normal breath. He's running. He's gasping for air, and then somebody cuts off your circulation and you're getting no oxygen. So needless to say, when Mahomes tries to get up, his brain is like, bro, stay down. I got nothing. I'm just trying to get some of these blood cells going again, because the oxygen just started coming back to the brain. And Mahomes, and that's why if Mahomes would have just stayed, I don't think he ever had a concussion. I truly don't think he ever actually had a concussion. I just think he got put to sleep temporarily. And so when he gets up, this is why you don't pick guys up off the turf. You let them help themselves. Unless they're reaching out for you to pick them up, let them sit down. His offensive lineman is so hasty to pick him up, and Patrick's legs are like, nah, bruh, these are noodles right now. That's why I said he was playing. I didn't know at the time he didn't have a concussion. I don't think he ever had a concussion, and he was in concussion protocol. He's out of it now. I don't think he ever had a concussion, to be honest with you, but that's why Henny was in the game. It was a poor decision on the part of Andy Reid and Eric Bieniemy to run Patrick Mahomes. You know what else no one's really talking about? Still has a toe injury. But that wasn't the concern, because to hell with the toe. If he's got a concussion, the toe won't matter if he can't play because he's got a concussion, because he's concussed. But he's still got a toe injury. Why in the hell are you running Mahomes with a speed option on 3rd and 1? Behooves me. You want to do that shit? Run Travis Kelce. You've done that before. Run him with the speed option. Put Tyreek Hill and McCole Hartman back there. Let Tyreek Hill get the snap. Have McCole Hartman at the running back position, and have those two run the speed option. That'll scare the Browns shitless. Don't have Patrick Mahomes doing that shit, though. That was brainless. And then Harrison Butker. Look, he's a hell of a field goal kicker. One of the best in the business. But my God, he missed an extra point, and he missed a field goal. And that almost cost them in the game. In a game that you win by 5, you left 4 points on the field, and that almost cost your team. You're better than that. He's got something where he just isn't good from 33 yards, kicking an extra point. I can't explain it. He'll bang it home from 58 like it's nothing. Have him kick it from 33 and he's a different guy. I don't get it, but almost cost his team. The defense stepped up, got to stop, and they prevailed 22-17. So that's how we get to our AFC Championship game of Buffalo at Kansas City. So that takes me to my final segment of the day.
Money, yeah, yeah. Money, yeah, yeah. Hey, that's a good pick.
Money, yeah, yeah. Money, yeah, yeah. Let's get it. So I was 2-2 last week. I thought it was going to be 3 home teams and 1 roadie. Guess what it turned out to be? 3 home teams and 1 roadie. I just got the wrong road team. And, of course, I had the wrong home team in the Bucks game. Or I had the home team in the Bucks game. The Saints didn't get it done. So I knew it wasn't going to be all home teams in the divisional round. But I was wrong about which home team was going to suffer defeat. So now we find ourselves on Championship Sunday, and I think the NFL got it right. I think these are the 4 best teams left in the tournament. The 1 and 2 seeds on the AFC side of the bracket, and the 1 and 5 seed on the NFC side of the bracket. So it's amazing, because we're going to start with the NFC game. It's the first one up on Championship Sunday, 3:05. Green Bay Packers hosting the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Both of these 2 matchups in both the AFC and the NFC are rematches of Week 6 matchups in the season. Isn't that amazing? That these 2 teams, who are non-divisional opponents, so they're not in the same division, played each other in the exact same week. Almost like the NFL was foreshadowing what was to come in Championship Sunday. Going to put the two teams, or the four teams that are going to square off in Championship Sunday against each other in Week 6, and those will be matchups that we'll revisit in Championship Weekend. Amazing. Nonetheless, in Week 6, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers destroyed the Green Bay Packers, who came into the game in Week 6 undefeated, coming off of a bye. They were 4-0. They were a damn good football team, and they were feeling great, and they got their asses raped. It was 10-0 Green Bay. They were tearing up the Buccaneers. They couldn't stop Rodgers in the run game. And then some shit happened. They hit Rodgers, and then they hit Rodgers again. And then Rodgers started seeing ghosts, and then he started throwing to the wrong team. And then they hit Rodgers again, and then Rodgers threw it to the wrong team again. And then they hit Rodgers again, and again, and again, and again, and again, and again. And they didn't score another point in the game. Meanwhile, the Buccaneers ran it, they threw it, and they did whatever the hell they wanted to do to the Green Bay Packers en route to a 38-10 destruction of the Packers. It was the worst game of the season for the Packers and Aaron Rodgers both. He's going to win the MVP, but that was the lone blemish on what is going to be an impressive MVP season for Aaron Rodgers. He was 16 of 35 for 160 yards, 2 interceptions, but that's not the stat that really, even though 2 INTs, when does Aaron Rodgers throw 2 interceptions? And I remember watching this game live and seeing the stat that was the first time Aaron Rodgers had thrown 2 interceptions in the same game since 2017 versus the Carolina Panthers. And I said, wow, that's amazing. That's amazing. Took this man 3 whole seasons to throw 2 interceptions in the same game. Yikes. But that's how good the Buccaneers were defensively that day. So it's amazing how far these two teams have come since that matchup. After that game, everyone thought Buccaneers are going to be in the NFC Championship game. Oh my God, look what they just did to the Packers. They destroyed them. Meanwhile, same Packers that couldn't deal with adversity and pass rush and physicality. Same soft-ass Packers we saw last year get destroyed by the 49ers twice. Well, that narrative has changed. And they're a different team now. I thought something else that was really interesting in that game, Ronald Jones went apeshit on the Green Bay Packers in that game. 23 carries, 113 yards, 2 touchdowns for Ronald Jones in that game. They had no answers for him. I feel like they can do that again. Honestly, if you watch that game against the Rams last week, Cam Akers, 18 carries, 90 yards. I think he had 2 touchdowns in that game. He single-handedly tried to keep them in that game. You can run it against Green Bay. I really do think that's the case. We'll see if Tampa Bay can do that again, can duplicate the efforts they had in Week 6. They're going to have to, if you want to be honest. They're going to have to if they want to win the game. They're going to have to do everything they did the first time around. Maybe not to the extent that it was done, because I don't think they're going to sack Aaron Rodgers 5 times like they did the first time and hit him a total of 13 times. Let me say that again for people in the back that are a little hard of hearing. Let me turn it up a little bit. I mean, seriously, turn it up. They hit Aaron Rodgers 13 times the first time these two teams met. You do that again, you will win the game. They're not going to do that again. No way in hell the Packers allow that to happen. Even with their best offensive lineman, David Bakhtiari, out of this game, there's no way they're going to allow the Buccaneers, who I've actually been pretty disappointed with their pass rush in the playoffs. They didn't sack Taylor Heineke as many times as I thought they were going to. I think they only sacked him once or twice. But he was able to escape them. He was able to make things happen with his legs. Drew Brees was a sitting duck back there in the pocket. They didn't sack him once last week. Haven't been all that impressed with the Buccaneers pass rush. This would be a fine time for them to rev it back up and get it back up to top speed. We'll see if they can do that. But I ultimately think is going to be the key in this game, because I think this is a different Packers team. I think they're a more complete, balanced team offensively, defensively. They're just a different team. They're not the same team that was mentally unstable early in the season. Well, even though they were undefeated, they were barely winning games. They were outscoring teams. They weren't playing much defense. Well, they're healthier defensively now. I think they're going to be able to put a little bit of pressure on Brady. Maybe. I've been surprised at how well that offensive line has protected Brady. He was sacked 3 times against Washington and once against New Orleans. But the 3 sacks against Washington were more like coverage sacks. They weren't immediate pressures. Maybe one of those sacks was immediate pressure. And the sack against New Orleans was early in the game. It was a nice little stunt and a little game that they ran up front, a TE stunt. And it got to Brady. But after that, they turned the faucet off. They've really done a good job, I felt like, this postseason of protecting Brady. Here's the thing that they haven't done well, and this is where I think the game's going to be won ultimately, is the Buccaneers have moved the football really well, very efficiently in the postseason. All right? They've been a hard offense to stop, especially when they've gotten great field position, and the defense has provided them with some great field position on multiple occasions this postseason. One interception versus Washington and 4 turnovers versus the Buccaneers or the Saints. They've had great field position in the playoffs, and they've made the most of that field position for the most part. But when they've had long drives that they had to sustain by themselves, when they didn't get any help from the defense with the short field, when they've had to go 8 plays or 9 plays or 11 plays or 13 plays, they've settled for field goals. The Buccaneers in the postseason right now are 4 of 11 in the red zone. That's less than 40%. That's loser football. It's amazing that they're even here with that stat. But the 11 attempts tells you that they've been down there a bunch. Okay? They've been in the red zone a bunch. 11 times in 2 games is astronomical. But they haven't punched it in. And that's ultimately going to be their undoing in this game. I've got the Packers winning this football game 34-23. Packers are going to score touchdowns, 4 of them, kick 2 field goals. Meanwhile, the Buccaneers are going to score 2 touchdowns and kick 3 field goals. And that's been their bugaboo, not being able to finish drives. And that's what's going to ultimately do them in this football game. You want to beat Aaron Rodgers and the Green Bay Packers in Lambeau Field, at Lambeau, in what might be an inclement weather game, going to need to score touchdowns. Haven't seen the Buccaneers do that this postseason. Don't think they're going to start now. Give me the Green Bay Packers to protect the house and move on to the Super Bowl for the first time since, 2011? Well, no, it can't be 11. That was the Giants year. What was it, 2010? I think it was 2010, where they went and they beat the Pittsburgh Steelers. So, we get to the AFC side of the bracket. Bills at the Chiefs. These 2 teams also met in Week 6, as I talked about. That game was a 26-17 Chiefs victory. One big difference in that game, it was wet. It was a cold, wet, nasty game. I remember it. It was on a Monday because it was supposed to be on a Thursday. But due to COVID situation with the Titans that pushed that game back with the Bills then had to move their Thursday game because they played on a Tuesday, so they couldn't turn around and play 2 days later, move their next game against the Chiefs to a Monday. And it was wet, and it was cold, and Clyde Edwards-Helaire stole the show. He had 26 carries for 161 yards in that football game. Travis Kelce also had a big game, not from a amount of receptions, only 5 catches in that game, but they were 5 impactful catches, including 3 that went for first downs and 2 that ultimately went for touchdowns. So Kelce was huge in that game. Edwards-Helaire was huge in that game, and it was a very close game. Chiefs needed a late score to put this thing out of reach. And again, Edwards-Helaire was the catalyst. He was the bell cow, and he may be back this week. But much like I said about the Packers, when they lost to Tampa Bay, this is a different Bills football team than the one the Chiefs saw in Week 6. Much more swag now. They were swagless in week 6. They didn't know how good they were then. They were still trying to find their way. As a matter of fact, they had just gotten their asses handed to them the week before by Tennessee, giving up a 40-plus spot. So they gave up a 40 burger, and they limped into that game, and the Chiefs took care of business. Totally different Bills team. Swag is on 1,000 right now, and they feel like they can do no wrong. They feel like they're a team of destiny this year. So it wouldn't shock me in the least if they ended up getting in this football game, being highly competitive, and found a way to come out victorious. We never get what we want. I've said that a million times. Everyone, I know I am. I can't speak for anybody else. I am clamoring for Mahomes Rodgers. I'm clamoring for a Mahomes Rodgers, Brady Foles type shootout in the playoffs, in the Super Bowl, I mean. 41-38, down to the wire, nail biter. That's what I'm looking for. That's what I'm focused on. But what we're probably ultimately going to get is some version of Bucks, Chiefs, Bills, Packers. Someone's going to F up this fairy tale ending for me. I never get what I want. We never get what we want. Told you that already. I'm not banking on it, though. I'm not putting my money on that. I'm putting my money on the MVP this year and Aaron Rodgers, and I'm putting my money on Patrick Mahomes to get it done again over this Bills football team. Yeah, he's got a toe. He's going to be plenty fine in this game. And I see the Chiefs winning this one 29-23. I think that this Bills defense struggles covering tight ends. I think that's an issue for them. And I think that Travis Kelce's going to have a field day. I do. And you know what was surprising last time? And again, it was a wet day. And Allen wasn't Allen then. He wasn't the Allen that he is now. He wasn't playing with the same amount of confidence. And the chemistry might not have been the same as it is now with him and Stephon Diggs. But Diggs didn't have a massive impact. I think he was like 6 catches, 46 yards, and a touchdown in that game. He'll have to be a much bigger factor in this game if they're going to have any chance. And I think he will. I think that Chiefs secondary is very suspect. And Bashaud Breeland potentially being out with a concussion, whether he plays or not, they're going to struggle with Stephon Diggs. They're going to struggle with John Brown. They're going to struggle with Cole Beasley. Hopefully he's a little bit healthier than he was last week. They're going to struggle with this Bills offense, I think. But when it's all said and done, the Chiefs are going to make more plays than the Bills. And don't let the score fool you. I think this is a 29-20 game late. Chiefs are up by 2 scores. And the Bills get in the field goal range and realize we need 2 scores. Let's just get this one field goal here. And then we're going to kick the onside kick and try to get it back with about 1 minute and 37 seconds left. They're going to go ahead and take the field goal. So that's what I got. Bills falling short. What a hell of a season it was, hell of a ride. But I got Chiefs Packers in the Super Bowl. I hope that's what we get. I don't think that's what we're going to get, though. I'm picking it because that's what my heart believes. That's what my heart wants to believe. My head says, you know damn well somebody's going to get upset. Whether it's the Packers at home or it's the Chiefs at home. Somebody's getting upset because you don't get what you want. But we're going to see. We are going to see. But that's going to do it for me, your man Louie T, on the 132nd installment of the Louie T Network podcast. I thank you guys for joining me. Really appreciate you guys chopping it up with me on this Friday afternoon. Can't wait. Bart Scott. Can't wait for Sunday. Looking forward to these 2 massive showdowns. Brady, Rodgers, Mahomes, and Allen. I mean, honestly, 4 of the best quarterbacks the league has seen this season. And that's really brought this conversation to the forefront of, if you're going to play in the Super Bowl, if you're going to play on the second to last Sunday of January, you're going to need an elite quarterback. Look at what's left in the playoffs this year. Maybe. It helps a hell of a lot to have a guy like this. But you don't have to win. You don't have to. But it helps. See what the hell happens, man. This should be a hell of a football game. Or football games. Looking forward to them. In any event, I'm going to glide to the side, allow you guys to enjoy the rest of your Friday evening and weekend. We'll reconvene on Sunday, obviously, for these two matchups. I'll be live after both of them. Obviously, I'll be live a lot longer after the latter of the two matches, of course, are games of which will be the AFC game with the Chiefs and Bills. But nonetheless, if you haven't already done so, please subscribe to the Louie T Network for more great content. Turn on your notification bell so you don't miss a thing. Also, hit that like button if you haven't already done so. Thank you guys for joining me. Do me a favor. Leave your predictions for this game, or these two games, excuse me, in the comment section. I can't wait to read. And if you got a footnote, leave that too. Score and more. Tell me how we get that score. If you've got it, give it to me. I want to know what you think is going to happen in these two games. And what's your Super Bowl? Love to read it. Until then, I'm your man, Louie T, signing off. And this has been the Louie T Network Podcast. I will see you guys next time. Have a good one.